I'm Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I want to have everybody give a huge shout out to Peter Laird right now. Without Peter, there would be no Turtles. Without us together, there would be no Turtles. Without you, we would not be sitting up here, so thank you.
Ernie Reyes Jr.
Steve Lavigne, I've been working with that guy over there for more years than I'd like to admit. But we're here and having a good time.
I agree.
Can you hear me? All right. I'm just a Turtle fan. I don't know what I'm doing up here. I like these guys. I was born in '86, so no, I make some Turtle comics now, and I did a book with Kevin that we just wrapped up called Drawing Blood, which hopefully we'll plug a little bit, but no, I'm just really a fan.
And we'll talk about our book in a minute. See ya.
So let's get started with Kevin Eastman. If you want to share with the crowd a little bit of a snapshot of how you came up with the legendary Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how they came about.
Yes, I met Peter Laird in 1982. We bonded almost instantly over Jack Kirby. He was a hero and inspiration to us, and both of us grew up as kids with a dream of becoming Jack Kirby, living and drawing comics for a living, much to the chagrin and mortification of our parents, who thought we were going to live in the basement for the rest of our lives with them. But we started a studio called Mirage Studios. It was a mirage because it was our living room. And late one night I was trying to make Pete laugh, usually while he was watching some of his favorite shows, which I hated, which were like TJ Hooker and the A-Team. He loved these really bad cop shows. So I had to annoy him and distract him as much as possible. So I had this idea if Bruce Lee was an animal, what would be the silliest animal? Fast-moving martial artist, slow-moving turtle was a really kind of funny, natural joke to me. So I did this sketch, turtle standing upright, nunchuck strapped to his arms, mask on, and I put it on his desk and I said, this is going to be the next big thing, ha ha ha, a Ninja Turtle. And so studio one-upmanship. He did a sketch, changed some things, then I had to one-up him, so I thought if one, why not a group like Fantastic Four or something? So I did 4 turtles, each with different weapons and pencil, and I put this Ninja Turtle logo in comic book lettering at the top, and then when Peter inked it in, he had a Teenage Mutant to the title, and we looked at it, we said, this is the dumbest thing we've ever seen. And because we didn't have any distracting pain work going on, we said, let's come up with a story that tells how these characters got to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we're not going to send it to anybody to try to sell it to anybody. We love it too much, so we want to figure out a way to self-publish, early form of crowdsourcing, which was mainly family members that we abused to raise enough money to fund the first issue. Self-published it 1984, May, 34 years ago this year. I thought we'd sell maybe a couple hundred copies, and so then when I was 2, when my teeth started coming in, it was, no. So we self-published it. We hoped we'd sell a handful of copies, invite a lot of friends and family to see what we were doing, to make it look like we had a crowd on our table. And this weird thing happened as you guys started buying that comic. And here I am 34 years later sitting next to these goofballs.
Yeah, we are glad to have you.
That's in a nutshell.
And we're done.
Thank you for coming.
Photos over there. No. So Ernie, you actually were in the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but you've been working ever since, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Red Sonja, which is incredible, and you're still working a lot today. Why don't you share a little bit about, you know, what got you started, how you stay motivated, and then what it means to you to be a part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fandom.
Okay. Let me see if I can remember the first question that you asked. No, I mean, I got into movies because of martial arts. When I was a kid, my dad had a martial arts school, so I grew up in martial arts school. My dad was a martial arts competitor. That's just kind of what we did every day, all day, including the weekends. And so after traveling across the country and competing as a martial arts kid, I got discovered doing a demonstration in Las Vegas. So my dad and I and his martial arts team were out in Vegas, and we were doing a demonstration, and at the end of it the crowd was going wild, and then this lady comes up to my dad and was like, "Does he speak English?" It's like, "Yeah, Ernie, get over here." And so that lady actually eventually became my manager. And at the time, we were still competing, so we weren't really ready to get into movies yet. Like, we wanted to, but we were like really just getting started on traveling across the country competing. So we told her, you know, not really at this point. Anyways, 4 years later, we had done competing, traveled all across the country, and we were like, okay, I think it's probably time to like try to do something else. And my dad finds the lady's card 4 years later, calls her up and says, you know, hey, you know, we're kind of ready at that point. We're at that point in our lives to kind of start to pursue, you know, films and television. And she was like, well, you know, has he grown at all? And my dad's like, nope. And so she became my manager, and yeah, Last Dragon, Red Sonja, and then eventually Ninja Turtles, and yep, Sidekicks, Sidekicks. Anybody remember Sidekicks, The Last Electric Night? There you go. Yeah. Surfing this. But you know, it's really cool just being part of the Ninja Turtles through all these years, and for it to still be here, to be able to have things like, you know, social media and Comic-Cons and all of those kinds of things where you actually get to meet the people that grew up on whatever you were doing and how much it's really impacted their life. Like, that's super cool. And that wasn't around when we were doing those movies originally. It's only 30 years later that we have an opportunity now to go back around and like say what's up to everybody, and that's like super cool to me. So I'm just happy to be here, man, hanging out. You know, I mean, Kevin and I go way back, and we're still really good friends, and there's, you know, always the greatest stuff is yet to come. So I'm just super excited to be here, man. So yeah.
You were OG original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the ground floor with Kevin.
I am.
Yeah, can you tell us how about that journey for you?
It wasn't a good one.
It was a great one!
Well, I've known Kevin since high school, and we always kind of dug each other's art, even though it was different. Very different styles, but as he hooked up with Pete and started doing the Turtle book, Kevin was doing the worst part of the book, which is lettering. And he looked at me and said, would you like to letter the comics? And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So he threw a letter guide at me, I believe, chucked it at my head, used it like a throwing star, then threw a ruler at me and said, practice a little bit, and I had to get approved by Pete. I think it was one of your first cons, right? Down in, was it Dover or New Hampshire or?
Yes, definitely. It was Portsmouth, yeah, because it was, because I lettered badly. I'm the guy that misspelled Michelangelo's name in all the original comic books. So all those misspellings that I did, it was like, because my handwriting was slightly nicer than Pete's. I mean, slightly, but I was a much worse speller. And so thankfully, Steve.
Well, that didn't get any better.
No,
spelling didn't get any better. We both went to same high school, so that didn't get any better in the books. So I started with the lettering, and then some graphic novels came into play, and I assisted Kevin on a couple of those, and took over on those, and slowly they became the featuring Cowabunga tales.
Yeah. No, I think it's like you were, I loved your color work, and so when we did the graphic novel, especially back in the day, I was like, the same thing. Your color work's great, but we need to color these, and it was a blue line process, a really dreadful blue line process.
Which is a horrible process.
So I was like, Steve, learn to color.
So I say, yes, I will learn to color.
Fantastically as well, they were beautiful.
But it was I mean, a great time. We always had such a great time, and you know, we all wore many hats in the studio. You know, out of all the core guys, we kind of passed things around. Especially, I mean, Kevin and Pete's method of drawing was, here's a page, I'm going to ink this toe, and pass it off to Pete now. You know, you see some of the pages, everyone's inking all over. So it was interesting. Just an interesting process.
No, Steve was the original first employee for the company. It was great, and then became an important member of the team, adding, you know, Ryan Brown, Jim Lawson, Mike Dooney, so the whole team, and they worked at every level of Mirage Studios, whether it be licensing art, the coloring books, designing toys. They were incorporated. They were the core group, and still considered the original core group of the company back in the day and today.
Thank you.
Steve, how has lettering evolved over the past 34 years?
Oh, lettering question. I don't have a lot of answers for that. Now it's spell check. It's all digital. It's awesome now because it's digitally just typed.
Even I can letter.
Yeah, you can be a letter. Anybody here can letter now. So I think that's the biggest change. I mean, you know, I was, you know, of course, learning on the job like we all did. You know, we'd look at other, you know, who's the best at doing this? Let's try to emulate them and get your stuff to look as close to that as humanly possible. Which sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah, I heard a rumor that Michelangelo is based on you. Is that true?
I know somebody said that somewhere, some along the way.
Well, it's like we used to, in high school, we had these, you know, I used to hang out in the art room all the time. Back in those days when being a geek wasn't as cool as it is now. But I used to hang out in the art room, but there was, Steve Lavigne used to hang around with another friend of ours, Steve Matevia. And they were like the two annoying goofballs that would always be wandering into the classroom, and they're supposed to be somewhere else, cracking jokes. Usually it's like the right time and the wrong time to tell the jokes. And we used to say that Steve was, I always thought of him as our high school's Robin Williams. It's like when you come up with a concept and you beat a joke into the ground to the point where it can't go any further. That's where I come in. That's where his starting point was, and he would go slow. I'd be like crying and almost peeing my pants. And just stop talking, just no more. And so he definitely, Michelangelo was based on Steve. I think of Steve when I do look just like him from here up. I would say. Just picture this green, and I'd look exactly like him.
Ben, so I really like everything I found about you. So you've known what you've wanted to do since you were 4 years old. I still don't know what I want to do, and I'm older than that. And so, you know, you've wanted to make comics since you were 4. Do you want to share with us, you know, how that journey came about? And how did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I've been drawing since I was like 4. Knights and dragons and cowboys and things like that. And then when I was 11, I wrote to Marvel asking for a job. Well, they said, grow up, call us back when you graduate high school. They liked what I was doing, though, and they actually wrote back. It was pretty cool. But then I was like, cool, all I have to do is graduate high school, grow up, and then I'll be like, hey, I'm that 11-year-old kid, remember me? That's not true. So after high school, I moved from New Hampshire to Maine to go to Maine College of Art. And it was great. I went for 1 year, learned a lot of stuff. But I was already making my own comics and stapling them together and, you know, kind of self-publishing and doing zines and stuff. In the second year of school, maybe like the first week, they called me down to the office and they said, hey Ben, you can't go to school here anymore. And I was like, what? What did I do? And they said, no, nothing. You get great grades, there's no math here, so you're doing great. But my loans didn't go through, so I couldn't afford it, which is a normal problem most people have. And so I was walking around the old port in Portland, Maine, and like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I doing in Maine? And then I ran into one of my teachers, and she's like, well, I said, I want to make comics. And she said, well, why don't you just self-publish like you've already been doing? And so I came to this obvious, epiphany. Yeah, I'll start over. Ready? So when I was drawing, 4 years old now. So I came to this idea that if I want to make comics, maybe I should just make comics. And so I spent the next 4 years working on my first book called Nathan the Caveman. It's a 300-page graphic novel, love story thingy. And it did great. It didn't get me the jobs that I really needed. So I just kept self-publishing, and then I started getting more and more jobs. Kind of snowballed. The reason I wanted to make comics, to get back to your question, was because of things like Ninja Turtles, like giant, you know, franchises and characters that you see on underwear and toys and movies and comic books. And I wanted those. I wanted my own characters, and I wanted something that would, you know, get huge and be beloved by people all over the world and for a really long time. So Turtles was really one of those things, X-Men, Spider-Man, things like that. And self-publishing led me to all this and all the Turtle stuff.
So who all have you done cover work for? What are some big properties?
I started by making fake covers for Ninja Turtles until they let me make real ones. And so people were coming by like,
Isn't that illegal? Kevin, get it.
Yes, it is.
We've sued him several times.
So I'm still selling a lot of those over at my booth if you want to come by.
What's your booth number?
I don't know. It's right behind Kevin, right next to you. So I was doing Ninja Turtle stuff, and then someone was like, "You're doing Ninja Turtles, right?" And I was like, "No, not legally." And they were like, "Oh, you should." And I was like, "Okay." And so then I did those, which led to some G.I. Joe stuff, and then the Turtles also led to the crossovers with Batman. So I got to draw Batman legally 3 times. That was nice. And then just being from Maine and knowing Steve, and then getting introduced to Kevin through Steve and through Turtles and self-publishing. Been doing tons of Turtle stuff now and self-published properties with Kevin.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, yeah.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
It is self-publishing. It's a real self-starter, and that's I met. We had a convention. I met hanging out with Steve, and I met Ben, and he'd given me a copy of this book that he just did a Kickstarter campaign for called The Aggregate, which is this masterpiece of integrated, almost self-directed comics.
Yeah, it's the world's first split decision comic. So it's like an all-choose-your-own-adventure book, but as a giant comic. 4 beginnings, 7 endings, 20 choices between giant robots, spider cats,
everything's in it.
Mutated stuff.
Everything you need in a book.
Yeah. And so I was just developing this new project I created called Drawing Blood with David Avalone, a friend of mine. It's about a character that exists in the world of comic books. Everything takes place in the world of comic books, and the thing that that was important to it, it had a lot of acting. He had a lot of emotion. The characters really had to emote, which is, I cannot do that. I'm not skilled enough. You know, I can draw turtles all day long and occasionally a nice face. And Ben had this wonderful, wonderful style, and it could really bring out emotion. It had so many characters. And so I was talking to David. We were looking for an artist for this series, and I said, this guy's amazing. And I remember it's like, because we had a 1-year anniversary when I sent you that first text, and I said, what are you doing for the next year? I want you to hire you for this project.
I was out drinking after a show, and I got a text from Kevin Eastman, and my friends were like, get outside. And he said, what are you doing for the next year? And I was like, whatever you want. So, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I brought him on. He's been integral in the creation, development. He's designed all the characters. He's been an important part, and he's not only just gone so far beyond just being the artist for the series. He's a component part of the team, and this would not be as beautiful as it is. It took us a year to finish the book. We just finished it before San Diego Comic-Con, so it's going to press next week.
As soon as that press print.
It's going in print. And,
congratulations.
So now we're doing a turtle story together. We started, I think, day before San Diego, we finished Drawing Blood. The day after San Diego, we started doing a 46-page turtle story together. So wait to see that. It's my favorite turtle insanity story in a long, long time.
Yeah, it's called Target R. IDW is doing this 4-part macro series, oversized issues for each turtle, and we're doing Raph. And Kevin made Raph angrier than Raph has ever been. I guarantee it.
It's awesome.
Like next level angry. It's got some Casey Jones. I don't know what else we can say, but it's gonna be awesome. So Kevin wrote it. He's doing the layouts. I'm doing the pencils and the finishes.
All right. So now, if anyone has any questions, all you have to do is raise your hand up high and make eye contact with me, and I will oh so gently jog over to you.
Be careful.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my question. It's really for each of you, if you choose to answer or not. So if you could do any fantasy project with anybody dead or alive, who would you choose? And what would the project be?
Steve said, yeah, so what do you want to say, Kirby? Yeah, I mean, I'll start just because, right, it's just, joking around. I've actually pitched DC several times. One of my favorite comic characters that Kirby did, of many growing up, I lived in this very small town in Maine. There's a book called Commandy. And Commandy it's called Commandy, the Last Boy on Earth, and it was kind of set in this Planet of the Apes style universe where animals ruled the earth and the humans had been reduced to sort of slaves in animal state. And so he'd grown up in a bunker, and he came up after all this great disaster that took place. And sometimes growing up in Maine, I felt like I was the last boy on earth. But that was a comic that, 12 years old, I was like, that was the comic for me. So I pitched DC several times to let me do a Turtles Commanding crossover, and every time they've said no so far. So I'm going to keep bugging them until I get it done.
Okay. Yeah, Ernie, come on. Go.
Who would you like to work with? Yeah. Besides, you just directed a music video, you should tell everybody.
Yeah, I just directed a music video for Wiz Khalifa. I'm gonna be directing a music video for Snoop Dogg coming up. So, to be honest, it's taken pretty much like my whole life to get to this point, and at a lot of different times, I may have felt differently about the future, because it's a long road to kind of have to travel, and sometimes you're like you get down and out, or your perspective isn't as bright, or lots of different things can affect that. But I do have to say right now, and it's cool to be here hanging out on a turtle panel, because a lot of that is what fuels me to keep going. But I'm just excited about the future in general and all the projects that we've kind of got going on the horizon. So just stay tuned, and you'll see the projects that I want to do, because those are the projects I'm going to do in the future. So, all right.
I'm going to pass to Ben.
For me, I mean, I can't complain at all. It's been amazing. It's been a great 2 years, and it's only Gonna get better. The only thing I would say is it would have been damn awesome to be one of you guys before I was born in that house, making all those comics, and eating all that pizza and party. I would like to be one of the original dudes. But it feels fun. It feels a little bit like that now, every now and then, just a little. But we're older and tired.
Some of us are older and tireder.
I'm young and tired. I don't get it.
And wearing Depends.
Exactly.
No, but I will say, and you know, Kevin and I have, you know, talked about things a lot, and you know, I don't know exactly what it is and what it will be at this point, but I definitely want to team up with him and work on a project together in the future. Would you guys like to see that? Yeah, some like live action shit.
I definitely want to see that.
Honestly, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank y'all. When I was a little kid, it was really hard for me to read, so my grandma went to whatever store and she picked up a whole stack of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books. She gave them all to me. And that's honestly basically the only way I learned how to read, all the way up until through high school. And I graduated the second in my class with honors.
No, that's fantastic. No, incredible. No, that's a huge compliment. Because you know, I was the same way when I was growing up. It's like I was reading comics constantly, especially when I was supposed to be doing homework and chores and all that stuff. But that's literally how I learned to read. And at some point, my dad was like, you know, I think it's really great that you read all these comic books. At least you're reading something. But then he gave me, he said, I think you'd like this book, a real book. And I held it and I'm like, Hobbit, what the heck is this? And so I read The Hobbit, was one of the first real books I ever read, and it blew my mind. So then it was like, he gave me Watership Down, and of course I read the rest of the trilogy. But it's a great gateway, and even in the early days of Mirage, because Steve worked a lot on the Archie comics and that kind of stuff, we used to be approached by a lot of teachers, and we'd donate lots and lots of books to schools, because they said the teachers would come to us at shows and go, I don't care what these kids read, but I want them to read something. This is a gateway. And so we did a lot of that, like donated tons and tons of books, and it's great to hear that you're one of the success stories of that, because it's important and it's really cool. Thank you.
This is more directed towards Ernie. My man, my hero, my idol. You're the one that got me studying martial arts when I was younger. Reading Black Belt magazine, trying to mimic your tornado kicks and roundhouses. My question is, after your kidney failure scare, how did that affect your outcome on life, your training schedule, and where your career was heading?
Yeah, so now that he's put my business out, no, I'm just kidding. So I had kidney failure 3 years ago. I can't believe it's been 3 years already. So, you know, when something like that happens, naturally you kind of hit a kind of bottom point, right? And from what I see in a lot of people that, you know, I do dialysis 3 times a week. It's like 4 hours and it's a whole thing. But the one thing that I have to say is that, like, having worked myself up from feeling like, oh my God, like, what is life? Like, how am I going to do anything? How am I going to even just move forward on? Like, you get to a point where none of that's even in the realm of possibility. You're just like, I don't even know how I'm going to survive. Like, that's. But to work yourself up to it and then get back on the road, for me, has given me a lot of perspective that I didn't have before. Because now I kind of feel like I have a little bit, I have a constant reminder like how sensitive and how fragile life is, and how you might not, like, no day is promised, there's no like guarantee of future, whatever. And so, you know, that drags me into trying to appreciate the moment a lot more, because I have a family and I've got kids, and so I do my best. And I'm not saying that it's like I'm like completely, like, I never get it's still all there, but I'm constantly reminded like how special it is just to be alive. Like, it's nothing extra. You don't get like movie deals and this and that. You just get to be alive. That's it. And then like work from that point to a place where it's like career's going well and things are going well. I think for me, it's a huge thing, because maybe when you have success and different things, your mind starts changing about how you see the world. Because you have money and you have power and you have all these different things, and you're like, try to filter life through that. Like for me, because I have a constant thing, like no matter what's happening that's good, it keeps me just even keeled on it all, so I don't get too crazy, which I've known to get. It keeps me just balanced more, you know. And like I have a constant reminder, like every day, like okay, like life is not guaranteed. You know, you got to make something of it, and no one's gonna do it for you. So that's like a long-winded, you know. It's a long-winded story because a lot's happened, but I take everything as a blessing right now, you know, and because I take everything as a blessing, things seem to be going pretty good, so I'm pretty happy. But thanks for asking.
Hi. Is there going to be another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and Power Ranger crossover? Or with another type of hero series or whatever?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's like when I sold my rights to the Turtles almost 20 years ago, and I've been consulting, lucky enough to consult on the animated show. But after selling my rights to the Turtles, one of the things that took me a while to get back to, which is interesting about perspective kind of thing, is when I started doing the Turtles comic books, I did it because I wanted to do comic books. I got to work with Peter Laird. We had this wonderful creation, and I got distracted for a long period of time. But when I let everything go, I wanted to go back to exactly what I love doing the most, which is drawing every day. And today I get, every day now I get to get up and I draw comic books every day, and it's all your fault. And thank you, every one of you, for buying the comics and stuff. But I have the greatest dream job I've had since I was 9 or 10 years old, was to draw comic books. And so when I have consulted on a number of the Turtle things, I did consult on the last 2 Turtle movies. They didn't listen to much of what I told them, but they asked me anyway. I just heard recently there is going to be a new movie, but I know nothing about it. If they ask me and want me to come and give them my 2 cents, I'll be glad to do that. But it's all, I'll find out about it online. It's probably the same time you all do. So.
Maybe they'll listen this time. It'll be a good movie.
my dream. What are you saying?
Don't comment. That's a trap.
No, I love it. Actually, after the last Turtle movie came out, I pitched them the idea because I so much love the Turtles IDW universe, which is kind of a Turtle universe into itself, where they kind of choose from multiple Turtle universes, like the original black and white comics, the early animated series, the 2000 series, one of my favorites. Actually, Tom Wallace, the one that Pete oversaw the direction on the 2000 Turtle series, is fantastic. And so we pitched this idea. It's like, if you're going to do another Turtle movie, why don't you let Tom Wallace and I write it and do it animated? Because I think we could really go to the place that would be an awesome movie. But the first thing Hollywood does when you pitch a good idea, they go, nah. Most.
It's fresh and new. We don't want that in Hollywood.
That won't work.
So I have a lovely guest right here. I have the Shredder.
Awesome.
And so my question is actually Shredder themed. I love a good villain. Can you tell us about the story of Shredder, how he came about, and then what's in store for the future of this lovely motivated villain?
Do you guys know how the Shredder was created? Have you seen the documentary or anything? I'll tell you because it's very funny. When Peter and I were coming up with the origin story of the Turtles in this tiny little house, 28 Union Street, Dover, New Hampshire, how do we steal enough of bits and pieces of New Mutants, Daredevil's origin, and many other things, and not get sued? How are we gonna? Who's gonna be the bad guy? Who's gonna be the guy that the Turtles gonna fight? So Peter's wife Janine was an awesome cook, and she cooked dinner, and Peter and I would do dishes. And so one night Peter was washing, and I was drying, and those metal cheese graters kind of thing you see in a kitchen? I was drying the inside of it, and I kind of slid my hand up inside and was holding onto the thing, and so the Shredder was on this side. And I said, man, could you imagine a bad guy with this as a weapon? He would like literally shred your skin right off. And Pete goes, that's on the Shredder.
It's lucky it wasn't the Julian side of that.
Just cut up in little slices. So that was the origin of the Shredder, and I loved so much, and I think we'll all agree, and I was actually looking through some photos, and I saw a whole bunch of photos from, because we're doing actually, the Toys That Made Us is doing a segment on the Turtles, which is going to be really exciting. So they asked me to pull a bunch of photos, and I was looking, I saw all these set photos of you in that Donatello's costume, like sweating. Poor guy, this were like 80 pounds?
Oh yeah, there's like at least about 50, 60 pounds. The original, I don't know if you all know that I was in the suit on the original movie. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, hey. So. but it's like and it was like latex foam, right? You know, like kind of a Nerf football, you know, like that. So you have this huge thing on, right? It weighs a ton. But when you start sweating, it all stays in there. So you can imagine if you take a Nerf football and then you dunk it in like a bucket of water, and then you put it in how it feels heavy. That was us, like every day. Like 12, 14, 16-hour days, fight scenes all day long. I mean, it was crazy.
All those spin kicks and all that.
Oh yeah. Jumping around, jumping through, you know, floors from the end sequence where we, you know, go from the second floor, the burning building, whatever, in there to see. Yeah, so needless to say, it was a lot cooler the second time for me.
Yeah, it was great to get you have it, because that's out of all the Turtle movies, it is, the fans definitely say #1 because it was the first one. But there's so many fans love The Secret of the Ooze, and we finally get to come out and, you know, be in front of the camera and all that stuff. Kino.
I have one question. With all the Turtle movies, why did the crane come in? What's with the crane dudes?
In like the original ones or the newest ones?
The animated ones.
Well, the animated ones, because it was changed when, because a lot of things when we did the original black and white series, comic series, and we were adapting it into the original comic series, we knew, because the original black and white comics were written for, Pete and I were just writing comics that we wanted to read. We were writing for ourselves, and I think the age level is about 16, which just sort of tells our mentality. You know, 16. But when we adapted them into the animated series, we knew that we had to soften it up because we were shooting for a much younger audience, you know, 5, 6, 7-year-old boys, typically. And so we changed a lot of things, like Pete had the idea of the different colored bandanas, because the first time I painted a turtle cover, I gave them all red bandanas. And so the people at the toy company in the animation studio were like, well, how do you tell them apart? Pete and I were like, the weapons, duh. And so we changed so you can tell them apart easily as animated characters. And then they picked different elements, like the Krang character, for example, is based on the Utroms in the original black and white comics, which is this alien race that we developed that actually developed the ooze that mutated the turtles. And they really liked the design of the Krang, and they said this would be a great bad guy. We could have him from another dimension, which would give us great opportunities to pull in other bad guy characters into the other dimension. And things like we changed the foot soldiers to robots, because you can't have mutated turtles running around on a Saturday morning with sharp cutlery cutting people up. So we changed the robots so they could sort of slash up robots all the time. And so much of that original series, even Bebop and Rocksteady, came out of characters that we created for the role-playing game and stuff. So it was fun to bring those things and adapt them into a separate Turtle universe. And it's funny, even if you look now, the original black and white comic books relate to the IDW comic series. That's a different universe. The original Turtles cartoon series, you look at the Nickelodeon cartoon series, the current one, and the 2012 series, which is a really awesome one, is a different universe, slightly different origin story, things like that. And the movies are the same now. That's like this slightly different origin in the movies that you see. So it's almost like we have multiple Turtle universes floating around. So it's great we can pick and choose from all of those, because it's a lot of fun.
So what about the 5th Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Venus? Where did she come from? I know I ask you every time I see you, but it's my favorite.
I love Venus. Most people don't, unfortunately. Especially Pete hates Venus.
It's not fair.
No, but I loved, because I've always been a fan of strong female characters in general. I loved that we brought April into the 2nd issue. She became an important part of the Turtle family. You know, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, Sarah Connor, you know, waitress that comes to save the world. I love that sort of iconic, you know, female, you know, I grew up with 3 sisters, and they could do anything I could do, and most times better, especially sports stuff, obviously. But with Venus, it started actually as we'd written a 4th Turtle movie. It was to feature a 5th turtle, a male turtle named Kirby, after our hero Jack Kirby. And when the movie didn't go forward, we then had an opportunity to develop with Saban, who created the Power Rangers, or brought the Power Rangers to the United States, to do a new Turtle series. And so there was going to be a 5th male turtle through most of the development of the series until about the 11th hour. And Margaret Lesh, who was head of Fox Kids at that time, said she wanted it to be a female turtle, and we were kind of like, well, it kind of goes against everything we developed, but I could see it could work and it might be interesting for girls' audiences. And Pete just was more like, he was uncomfortable with the idea. I think he'd already had in his mind that we were going to do a tribute to Kirby and felt that a girl turtle was not appropriate at that time. So he chose to sort of step away from the series, and I thought, so I ran that series and I had a lot of fun and we worked really hard and I liked it, but a lot of fans look at that complete series as one of the worst turtle series. So that's my fault. I'll take one for the team on that one. But I love Venus, and I'd love to see a girl turtle return in some fashions.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left, so I'd like to kind of cover, what's now and what's next with all four of you. So what projects you're currently working on, and then what you guys see coming up in the next period of time.
I've been talking to most of you.
Nothing.
Let's start with Ben and work our way this way.
Well, Kevin and I are hard at work on that Target R story for IDW, which is due October 1st, and it should be out December, I believe.
I think you were literally starting to work on the plane.
Yeah, my plane was delayed, so I got page 1 done. So I'm gonna do it on the way home. So we're doing that, and then like we said, we're press and print on Drawing Blood, and those will go out to the Kickstarter backers who helped make that possible. And then we're hoping to re-release it issue by issue, because the thing that Kickstarter backers are getting is the trade of Volume 1, so it's first 4 issues all in one book. But then there's going to be more. We're doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and hopefully more, and hopefully a TV show if you guys know anyone at Netflix and you want to make that happen. So that's about it that I know of. Yeah.
For me, right now I'm finishing up some covers for IDW. I do Adventure Series covers. I've got a board game. Back in Mirage, we had a toy design group for years, and I happened to pick up a couple of the properties and kind of rework them, and I'm going to kickstart a couple of things in the near future. That's kind of what's happening right now.
Any more children's books in the works?
I do not at the moment, but there are some on my drawing table that may happen. But
what was the first one you sent it to Shane?
Shine Like a Light.
Shine Like a, yes, that was, I love that. Hopefully there's more.
It will be.
So just to follow up, because basically my future is with Ben, right? Which is, me coming up with ideas of doing layouts.
We're doomed.
So, Jill, you have to take good care of him. Stay off the booze, buddy. I'm kidding. No, we're having a great time. We had so much fun doing Drawing Blood, and we're hoping for the continuation of the series, support with a new publisher. I'm really excited about Target R, but I still do a lot of regular work with, I do all the regular covers, I consult and work and write a lot of the stories for the ongoing IDW series, and I'm having the time of my life. We just finished issue 86. We're going to start a storyline which is a tribute to the last series that Pete and I worked on together in Mirage, which was called City at War, which ran issue 50 through 62. So we're starting City at War in issue 90 of the Turtles, which will run to issue 100, which will be a double-size 48-page special by issue 100, which I think is coming out next November, and it's going to be completely off the charts. It's going deeper, darker, heavier than any Turtle story we've done. It's going to be buckle up and hold on tight. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm just having a great time, and I still can't believe I get to draw turtles every day. It's a joy.
And Ernie, when does your music video drop? Didn't you just do one with Snoop Dogg?
No, yeah, Wiz Khalifa video, Rolling Papers 2. It's out now. And then, did anybody see the Nathan Fillion Uncharted film that I did?
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's happening with that. Maybe that has some wheels. Gonna be directing some new, more music videos, and hopefully a feature at the beginning of the year, so keep your eyes out.
For sure. All right, everybody, let's give a big round of applause to the Teenage Mutant Ninja